Hey guys, Jedi Disciple 91 back at it again for another video here at Austria with Carlos Sainz and the Toro Rosso. Anyway, here we go to 5 red lights, and away we go for the Austrian Grand Prix. Here is Carlos Sainz. A lot of wheel spin at the start, not the best getaway, but we break into turn 1, get a huge wash of dirty air and oversteer, which crashes us not only into the Williams, but also into the Haas. As we tug into the slipstream of the car ahead, down the long straight down into turn 3, we brake and we send it up the inside, actually push him. I will admit that's probably not a legal move, but we'll take it anyway. No warnings from the stewards, so we're all good in that respect. Anyway, coming down into turn 3, a downhill right-hander, hard on the tires, and it's different every time when you brake there. It's hard to judge the braking point. And here, the super hard turn 5, and then sweeping into turn 6. But moving on in the race, we are actually closing up to the Renault of Nico Hülkenberg, who has done fantastic to get up into that place. But as we break down into turn 3, we send it again, a Daniel Ricciardo dive bomb on Nico Hülkenberg, and that is a textbook move at Austria. It's the number 1 overtaking spot, at least for me, although I do see cars overtake here into turn 4, but it's just easier for me. But moving on into the race, we can see that there's a huge train forming, and in fact 2 of them were going side by side up the straight, but we're catching up to this train, and we send it up the inside of Sergio Perez, and we get the move done. I will admit, some of my moves are dirty, but I was impatient, and I didn't have any flashbacks, so yeah, that's kind of what happened. But continuing on, we go very wide there, nearly go in the grass. Luckily there's a rumble strip there made of AstroTurf, fake grass. But again, this corner, super hard to judge the turning in point, sorry. And then turn 6 that kicks you into turn 7. And basically, we are ahead of the Force India, which is a very good thing, because it will help us in our strategy. In fact, I don't think that we ever see him again, really. But yeah, anyway, moving on, we send it up the inside of Daniel Ricciardo, and well, it's gone well. It was another very dirty move, but we got it done. So now we're gonna break down into the downhill right-hander. It's a really difficult corner to negotiate. But again, the super high speed, really high G-force corner, actually we get on those yellow mini sausage curbs that really put the car off if you do tend to hit them. It gives you a lot of oversteer. But this camera angle really shows how dangerous the pit entry is here in Austria. I almost ran into Kimi Räikkönen there. It's really bad. And as you can see ahead, the Mercedes and the Ferrari car battling it out side by side down the long straight, where there now is DRS in 2018. But anyway, us as Carlos Sainz and the Toro Rosso going well here in Austria. We're actually in the podium places, but obviously we haven't done a pit stop yet, so that may change over the course of this race. Hopefully it doesn't, though. But as we break down into, as we continue on, we can see that the Ferrari and the Mercedes now pit. So now it's, and I have to avoid them. So again, I go on those really off-putting curves there where Pierre Gasly actually destroyed his suspension. But anyway, continuing on into turn 3. But, surprise, surprise, Verstappen has retired from the race. and there's a virtual safety car, so we have to adhere to the speed limit. Now, this is really bad for us because at the moment our rivals are in the pits, so it's actually helping them because they lose less time because the field is slowed down, and I'm gonna lose more time because the field will be at racing speed when I pit. So I've really gotten screwed over with my strategy here, but we'll just have to deal with it and make do. But yeah, you can just see how slowly we are going and how much of an advantage they're going to have over us. But now we come into the pit lane and the whole field is at racing speed now. It's actually a really narrow pit entry. It's kind of scary, and you have to brake as late as you can into the pit lane as we come in for a hopefully quick stop by the boys. Looks like it's a quick one, yeah, no issues with the jacks or the tires, and we're clean in and out. So now this is also one of the tightest pit exits. I mean, just look at that, that is treacherous. I'm surprised no one has ever lost a front wing there. In fact, myself got a bit of oversteer, but like I was saying, we lost so much time, so now we're actually behind the Red Bull of Daniel Ricciardo, which, if you'll remember, we passed him quite early on in the race. So things not looking good strategy-wise for us in the Toro Rosso. So we have our work cut out for us, but we're gonna try and see what we can do here as we get a nice view of the shark fin. And we've actually sent it up the inside, still side by side with the Red Bull, but he decides to tuck in and eventually stay out of it. So it was actually really easy for us to pass him. But anyway, our teammate Daniel Kvyat is still ahead of us, although he has not made a pit stop. So we are technically ahead of him. Yep, here we go, into the pits. Oh, that was very close to hitting our teammate. And yet another example of how treacherous the pit lane can be in this game. Now, unfortunately, I lost the footage of the rest of the race, so I will tell you that I did finish in third. And yeah, that's all that I have to say.
Now then, Anthony Davidson, who was your driver of the day?
Probably